There comes a turning point in life when the roles between parents and children begin to shift. You raise them for years, guide them, make sacrifices for them, but one day you realize that everything has changed. Maybe what you say no longer resonates with them. Maybe they belittle your opinions, don't listen to you, or even worse, they start looking down on you. They might even make you feel like a burden, and that truly is very painful. If your children stop showing you the respect you deserve, it can hurt and anger you. Perhaps they don't realize all the sacrifices you've made, putting their needs above your own for years, and you might want to remind them of that. But here's an important truth. Getting angry will never solve anything. In fact, reactions like that often make things worse. Instead, there's a much more effective way. You don't need to argue or feel hurt. Today, I'll share 6 powerful steps you can use when your children stop showing you respect. These steps will not only help you defend yourself, but also make your children begin to see you as a valuable and respected figure once again. Some of the suggestions might surprise you, but if you stick with me until the end, you'll discover how to regain your respected and valued place in their lives. Ready? Let's get started. Step 1. Stop trying to win their approval, especially as we get older. One of the most common mistakes parents make is constantly trying to earn their children's approval. Maybe you've noticed this yourself. You adjust to their desires, say yes when you want to say no, and put your own needs on the back burner. And in the end, you hope that if you're good enough, they'll appreciate you more. But the painful truth is this: the more you try to win their approval, the less respect you get. Real respect is earned not by sacrificing yourself, but by respecting yourself. If you're constantly stepping back, always giving in, always staying silent, you're teaching your children that your feelings don't matter. And once they believe that, they won't hesitate to take you for granted. I once knew a woman named Ai. She was a strong and independent woman in her youth, but as she got older, she began letting her children make decisions on everything. She adjusted her schedule to fit their needs, suppressed her thoughts, and sometimes even ignored their condescending remarks. "I just want to keep the family together," she once said. But what happened? Her children stopped seeing her as a valuable figure. They began to see her as someone who always complied, always said yes, always stayed silent. She thought she was keeping the peace, but in reality, she was losing her voice. If your children aren't showing you respect, the first step isn't asking for respect from them. It's stopping the behavior that makes you seem needy. Set your boundaries, say no when necessary, and express your thoughts clearly even if they don't want to hear them. Because once you start respecting yourself, they'll start seeing you differently. And over time, the respect you thought you lost will return. Step 2, don't argue. Set an example. When your children belittle your opinions, interrupt you, or act disrespectfully, your first instinct may be to argue. You might want to remind them of what you've done for them and make them listen to you. But let me tell you something that will save you years of frustration and resentment. Arguing never works. Think about it. When was the last time you convinced someone to respect you by arguing with them? Respect is earned not through words, but through your presence, how you carry yourself, how you respond when your patience is tested. These are the foundations of it all. If you react to disrespect with anger, you're actually sending the message, "You have power over me." I knew a man named Met. He was a retired teacher who had confidently led his classroom for years, but things were different at home. Grown-up children no longer took him seriously, ignored his opinions, and sometimes even laughed when he spoke. At first, Mehmet reacted. He argued. He kept trying to prove he deserved respect, but the more he argued, the worse things got. Then one day, Mehmet tried something different. Instead of arguing, he began truly listening. He decided to earn respect not with words, but with his actions. He spoke calmly, wisely, and without boasting. And slowly, his children started to notice. Instead of seeing a man scrambling for approval, they saw a figure with a strong presence. If your children aren't respecting you, don't fight with them. Show them what respect looks like. Lead by example through how you treat yourself. Protect your dignity, speak with confidence, and most importantly, don't lower yourself to their level, because when you stand tall with grace, they'll feel it. And over time, they'll begin to follow your lead. Step 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. One of the hardest lessons learned as you get older is this: you can't rely on your children for emotional satisfaction. You can love them deeply, want them to love you back, and desire their respect. But at some point, when they realize that you need them to feel valuable, the dynamic in your relationship starts to shift significantly. The truth is, people, even your children, respect emotionally independent individuals more. If you're constantly seeking attention, love, or approval from them, it creates pressure. And that pressure, instead of making them feel grateful, can cause them to see you as a burden. They begin to pull away, and they might become impatient or even angry with you. The more you try to win their love, the less they'll give it to you. I once knew a woman named Emily. She was a kind-hearted, selfless mother who had dedicated her life to her children. But as they grew up and got busy with their own lives, Emin found herself staring at her phone, waiting for calls. When they didn't call, she would frequently call them. She would tell them how much she missed them and how she wished they would visit more. But this behavior, instead of bringing them closer, had pushed them away. Her calls had become a chore, something they no longer looked forward to. Then one day, Emin decided to do something different. She stopped waiting. She chose not to be the first to call. She focused on herself. She picked up new hobbies, started going out with friends, and took ownership of her own happiness. And something amazing happened. Her children started calling her more often. They began to value her time and took notice of her full, fulfilling life. The lesson from this story is clear. The less you need your children to make you feel needed, the more they will value your presence. When you show them that you can stand on your own, they will care for you, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely admire you. And remember, people, especially family members, treat you the way you allow them to. Setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting your children out of your life or fighting with them. It means calmly and confidently deciding what behaviors you will and won't tolerate. And more importantly, when those boundaries are crossed, they must be enforced with determination. I once knew a man named Mehmet. He was a retired businessman who had managed his company with discipline and confidence throughout his life. But when it came to his grown children, he struggled. They would interrupt him when he spoke, disregard his opinions, and sometimes even criticize his lifestyle. At first, Mehmet put up with it, telling himself this isn't worth arguing over. But over time, he realized that every time he stayed quiet, he was teaching his children that this behavior was acceptable. One day, Mehmet changed his approach. When his son interrupted him, he calmly said, "I'll continue listening when you're ready." When his daughter belittled his opinion, he said, "You don't have to agree with me, but you do have to show me respect." When his children pushed his boundaries, he spoke very clearly, "If you don't show me even the basic respect, I won't spend time with you." And you know what happened? They started listening. At first, they resisted, but over time they understood that their father wasn't backing down. Mehmet was now valuing himself and demanding respect, and his children began giving him the respect he deserved. If your children aren't respecting you, ask yourself this: am I allowing this to happen? Because if you don't set boundaries, neither will they. And if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will stand up for you. Step 4. Stop giving without appreciation. One of the quickest ways to lose respect is to continuously give to people who don't value you. And as parents, we do this far more often than we realize. We give our time, our energy, our support, but when we aren't thanked, when what we do is ignored, and when we get nothing in return but indifference. But let's face the truth, if you give without being valued, you don't build love, you don't build respect, you build expectations. They start to see your kindness not as something precious, but as something they are entitled to, and the moment you stop, instead of being grateful, they'll feel bothered. I once knew a man named Hazan. He was a generous father who always gave to his children. When they needed something, he would provide financial support, drop everything to help them, and even rearrange his life around their needs. But instead of thanks, he received complaints. Not only was he not thanked, but they expected more. The worst part was that when he finally asked for help, his children were too busy. Then one day, Hazan changed his approach. He stopped overexerting himself. He no longer offered help unless asked. And most importantly, he learned to say no when needed. At first, his children were upset. They didn't understand why he wasn't always giving everything for them. But over time, something shifted. They began to value his time. They started to appreciate his efforts because they suddenly realized that Hazan's generosity was not limitless. It was a gift, not a guarantee. If you feel like your children don't respect your time, effort, or kindness, take a step back and ask yourself, am I giving too much? And if I stop, what will happen? Because when you teach people that your generosity is tied to respect, they will start to see it that way too. Step 5. Build your own life. One of the most powerful ways to regain your children's respect is to show them that your happiness does not revolve around them. As parents, it's natural to dedicate ourselves to our children, to shape our lives around them. But as you get older, this dynamic changes. And if you've spent your entire life prioritizing them, they may begin to see you as someone with no life of their own. People respect those who have their own purposes, interests, and sense of fulfillment. If your children see themselves as the source of your entertainment, approval, or meaning, it can make them feel suffocated. Worse, they may begin to view you as someone without a life of their own. I once knew a woman named Ai. She was a widowed woman in her 50s. After her husband passed away, she dedicated everything to her children's lives. She was always calling them, giving unsolicited advice, and expecting them to step into her shoes, but this approach only pushed them away instead of bringing them closer. They visited less, their calls were shorter, and I started feeling more and more lonely. Then one day, I made a decision. She joined a book club, started traveling with friends, and began volunteering at a local community center. Instead of making her children the center of her life, she rebuilt her own world, and something incredible happened. Your children began to see her differently. They started showing more interest in her. They were curious about what she was doing. They appreciated her independence. They respected her. If your children aren't showing you respect, ask yourself this question. Do they see you as someone with a full, meaningful life, or as someone waiting for their attention? Because when you show them that you're living, not just existing, they will start to see you in a completely different way. If you're still watching this video and finding these ideas valuable, you can. Let us know by typing 6 in the comments below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss a video. Your support gives us the power to keep creating great content. Now let's move on to the final thoughts. Respect is not something you can demand from your children. It is inspired by the kind of person you are, how you set boundaries, and how you live your life. If they are showing you less interest or respect, don't waste your energy getting angry. Instead, change your approach. Don't chase their approval, because the less you need it, the more they'll give. Be an example, because your honor speaks louder than your words. Grow your emotional dependency, because the more independent you are, the more respect they will show for your presence. Set boundaries, because people will treat you not just the way they want, but the way you decide to be treated. Stop the habit of giving without being valued, because when generosity becomes a habit, it loses its value. And most importantly, build an independent life, because people respect those who have their own purpose, joy, and fulfillment. If you do these things, something incredible will happen. Your children will start to see you not as someone waiting for their attention, but as someone who deserves respect through your own existence. And over time, that respect will return to you. Because you didn't demand it, you earned it. Thank you for being with us today. We would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share something you've learned and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your thoughts are very important to us, so feel free to share. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and courage. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us keep creating great content. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.